what do I say?
Oh, I don't know.
Today we're going to do this right here. Let's go check out. So I built my stroker and how do you say it? This thing's not going to make a dyno run today. I guess that's what I'm going to say. Still, like, the brake's so locked up it was dragging in the driveway. But I just want to break the surface with tuners, and me and Justin are determined to learn it, but it's going to take a while. So if for some reason you don't know, this is a 4.895 stroker. Is that right? Or did I say 5.0? It offends people when I say it's a 5.0, so it's a 4.895. Could it be a 5.0? Yes, but anyway, that's a built motor. I'll link it below. I'm not going to waste your time explaining. So it's on a stock tune. So it's got injectors, it's got cams, it's got all that stuff. So that's that.
So then, it's confused.
Yeah, like it'll run. I guess I can crank it for no reason. No phone calls, Lance.
He's
honestly, it runs pretty good for a stock tune. But if you try to drive it, it's no good. That was a big motor. Lance, you'll see something funny. So this one is a WJ. This is a WJ block. I've put if you don't know, it's a 7120 casting head. So it's not a coil, it's a coil pack setup, but it has the bigger exhaust ported head. Well, if Justin can show you, it now has a turbocharger. And
it's in there.
It's in there. I think this is a 2-bar map sensor, right, Lance? Yeah? Yeah, it has a 2-bar, has the same 20, well, has different. Those was from Clegg's. These are their 24-pound injectors.
They're purple. They're
purple. I paid good money. You don't even know. I got on eBay and typed in 24-pound. Mustang injectors
are 24
pound. These was knockoff. They're also purple. They was significantly cheaper, and this is a bone stock motor. So I was like,
so what you're saying is this thing has absolutely no idea what in the world is going on.
No, and yeah, it's confused. It's got boost reference fuel regulator, stock tune, all that stock. So that's today's video. Like, we're probably not going to go down the road at 100 miles an hour. Go ahead and break that. I don't even know if Lance knows that, but we just want to learn what we're doing and figure out charts and tables and what to look for. This one, it's been turbocharged and it's never been put in gear from this position. So it'll crank and run, and Justin was here yesterday, different video. This just fit, and I didn't think twice about it, but it's not going to work. So engine's cold. This is I haven't even crunk it since I put coolant in it. I don't even think you know that.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to crank it. We're going to see if we can make this swell up and kind of scare you. And then we're going to go stare at his computer as soon as he figures out what he's doing. So maybe the part where we actually just sit the camera down, and Justin wants to learn too, so he's not going to be a camera guy. So we may sit the camera down and just stare at the computer. And I'm sorry if that part's boring, but we want to learn. So it's not going to be, yeah.
Oh, please don't blow up in my face.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that. So we couldn't tune it. No, I didn't order that yet. So we can't drive this and tune it.
I'm scared of this thing making 3 pounds of boost, and yeah.
Give it a second. I think it'll start trying to use this map sensor and get confused. I think it goes back to the basement. I don't know that, but there's no reason it should run.
It's actually running pretty good today.
It run bad the first time it runs up. That's why I think it went back to a basement. I don't know. I'm gonna rev it up here.
Of course you are. Oh, hold on. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's not going to hold. I didn't think about it, but like all these things are reinforced with nylon and silicone and all that. That's just a stock rubber in a, so it's...
Reinforces it with some Gorilla Tape.
That's not a bad idea. Okay, so we're going to go over here. We're going to learn. I don't think he's ready. And then, what do I say from there?
We'll pick you back up when we figure out something interesting.
Yeah, that's what I said. This today is for me and Justin and him to learn. So it may not be the most exciting thing you ever see, but we're gonna try to learn from. That's what I say in my other videos. Like, I'm trying to do a video on TIG welding. Like, if you go watch a guy that knows how to TIG weld, he's not gonna struggle. You ever thought about this? So if you watch a guy struggle you learn from your mistakes. So if you watch me struggle to learn TIG welding, you're gonna see where I screwed up or I screwed up. Instead, if you watch a guy that just knows how to do it, it's like, he just made it look easy and you didn't learn anything. So hopefully that's what happens here, but we'll be back. All right, just being completely honest, from this point forward, when you see the computer screen, that's pretty much the whole video. So if you're not into that, I admit, I wouldn't say it's boring, but nothing really just happens. But if you're into learning the HP tuners, we do learn a lot. It's just a long, I'm not going to say boring. I don't know how to say it. I just don't want somebody to be sitting here waiting and clicking and skipping and hoping to find something interesting, like going down the road. We don't ever tune the vehicles. I have to order more stuff. So literally all the video is sitting there looking at the screen, learning tables and what tables do and airflow and stuff like that. So it is very interesting. It's just, I just wanted to make that clear in case somebody kept waiting and got frustrated with me. So that's why it's on my side channel. If you didn't pay attention, this is my side channel. I can put stuff like that. So thank you. Back to it. Hope you learned something and enjoy.
So,
Lance said log in. That's as far as we've got.
yeah. So what the main thing you're going to want from this screen is once you sign into your account, you'll click your name at the top, and you'll have your devices, which will be your MPVI 2 or 3. But this is where your tune repository is, and this is where. So if you wanted to add credits to your device, you click My Devices.
So what is a device?
That's going to be your dongle that plugs into your vehicle. What's my HP Tuner's link that's in there on the table.
So we need a dongle?
You got to have one of them.
So I need to order a dongle.
Yeah. It's technically your HP Tuners.
Right.
And now it's
Write it down.
two.
It's on video. But yeah, let me keep going.
2 plus, or 3. 3's the newest one. This is where you'll pretty much sync that to your computer. Because when you tune something, you have to buy credits for that vehicle. And this is where you'll buy those credits. And they're not car specific. When you buy credits, you just put credits on your thing. You don't have to pick what they're for. And then once you get into a car, we'll go from there. But this is where you add the credits.
Credit is basically like,
You're paying the fee to unlock it.
Yeah, but like you said, it might be from 96 to 99 Cherokee.
Yeah, but you're only going to unlock one VIN number. Or you could say one VIN number is going to cost you 2 credits, which is $100. Or if you wanted to unlock,
it's 1,000 for 10, ain't it? Unless it changed.
Well, yeah, it just depends. So we can go to vehicles. We'll go.
I remember briefly talking about this because, like you said, if you buy 10 credits, you unlock all those.
Yeah, well, in a specific. So we'll go to Jeep. And then we'll scroll to y'all. Let's just say this is all the Jeeps. So y'all are going to be in this Cherokee 01. So you got the 96 to 2000.
Yep.
And you got an 01. So 01 had a different computer.
That's crazy. People are tuning 3.6s.
Well, I mean, this is just stuff that's applicable to this tuning software. So it doesn't even mean people are using it. So here we go. It's got this little.
We need 96 to 2000 is what we probably want to be.
That one. So it's gonna cost you 1 credit, so $50.
Okay. So what's the? You've mentioned it before. If you spend $1,000,
well, sometimes you can buy. Let's just say 10 of these Cherokee credits.
Yeah.
And once you buy 10, then you have them unlocked. You don't have to buy any more.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily. It's not that for every one of them.
Yeah.
Some stuff don't allow you to do that. Some cars it's cheaper. Some cars have more or less.
Okay.
But when you do that, it's car specific or this model specific.
Yeah.
So and look, at 1 credit, this is the cheapest thing you can tune on HP tuners. It costs you $50.
I'm okay with that.
But so you would go back. Let's go back. We're going to focus on if we've got our new.
You can tune 2.5s.
HP
I seen
tuner,
it.
you're gonna go here and you're gonna log in. And you're gonna come down, you're gonna go to My Devices, and you're gonna register your device. And this is where you'll put in your number, and you'll plug it into your computer.
This is the dongle?
Yep.
Okay.
And like, so if I wanted to, I've used 115 credits on mine.
God, you spent a lot.
So if you wanted to, say I needed to tune a Jeep, I need one more credit, you'd go add credit here, and then it would take you through the purchase process, and it would put it on your account.
Yeah.
Now to use that credit, we want to go back to our VCM suite. And this is where people get all bent out of shape if they're new to HP tuners. They'll buy a credit and it's not on there.
Okay.
So you go to the help and you go to resync your interface. And you've got to be on the internet when you do this. So you'll plug your HP tuners link into your computer.
Mm-hmm.
You'll resync your interface, and that's going to tell your thing that you just bought 2 credits.
Okay. So the dongle wouldn't know that it has a credit.
Right.
Okay.
And then once now that's just for anything. You're just buying credits in general. And say you wanted to use that credit, once you write the information to the vehicle, it's going to prompt you, hey, this car requires 1 credit. Would you like to use the one you have? And it's going to say you don't have, this is a one-time deal. If you mess it up, we don't give you your money back, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But you've got to go to the website to do that. All right. And the other thing that's on the website that's super popular, which is not for you evidently, is the tune repository. Say you jacked your tune all up and you didn't save it.
So those are public tunes.
Yes, but they're stock. They're very seldom will you find anything that's
Nobody wants to
modded.
share their tune.
Right.
So
They don't really want
put a tune back
modded
in your,
tunes.
your Duramax.
Yeah, let's go Chevrolet, because this will be in there for sure. Silverado in the 5.3 flavor. So we'll come here.
Like you said, nobody would want a built tune right here. They want a stock.
No,
one.
yeah. This
But
is
it's
just,
something to build off
This is
of.
to fall back on if maybe you bought a truck and it's tuned and you want to take it back to stock. So you can download this file, and we'll just download this stock file.
And these are by people, so you could publish a screwed up tune and really get somebody's feather.
I think the
They probably-
HP Tuners
they
does a pretty good job cleaning
Checking.
that up. So we'll go back to our VCM suite. All right, so now you can see at the top of the screen, it's got 102.843.153. That's the tune that we just sucked off the internet. So this is we'll go to Engine, General, and it says this is a 5.3, 8 cylinders. This is our cylinder volume. Now this is important to you because you've built a stroker.
Yeah. Okay.
So when your engine is running off volumetric efficiency, like a speed density, and really this is the base to any tune, but this shouldn't change in a stock motor. But let's say you pulled the file off your 4.0 Jeep that's now a stroker, and you were trying to adjust your fuel tables, it's not going to be right. It's going to be over a bit because the displacement has increased.
Mm-hmm.
So you would come here and you would divide your number of cylinders by your new liter displacement.
Yep.
And that would give you your cylinder volume. When you update that cylinder volume and save it, it's going to remap all of your volumetric efficiency tables for that displacement of engine.
Makes sense.
Um,
Mass airflow sensors.
Mass airflow sensor is not necessarily as susceptible to that because it's more of a frequency-based thing, but it does matter. The speed density tune is the main thing.
So like just changing that number right there, is it automatically going to change your injector? Is it pulse width? Is that what you call it?
Shouldn't change.
No, it's not going to change anything necessarily. Here's what it would change. So let's say we're at 0.66. This is a 5.3. And our airflow table, this is our VE table. This is our volumetric efficiency table. This is what just about everything you're going to tune is going to run off of. So across the top we've got RPM. Down the side we've got manifold vacuum measured in kPa. So think of it as engine load. At 100 kPa, that motor has no vacuum in the intake manifold. It is pulling the most amount of air it can pull. So if your engine is 93% efficient at 4,800 RPM, that's where your 4-liter, or this 5.3 in this situation, that's where it makes the most amount of power. That's where it's the most efficient. Any LS motors in particular, they are less efficient at higher RPMs with the factory cam. This is the
I see that. So
this is the peak range.
it starts falling off once you get past 4,500,
Correct.
even though it's wide open throttle.
It just doesn't need as much air as it did in the peak torque range. They make more peak torque at 4,800.
It's a stock motor. It's kind of a
Right.
What did you expect?
Where is the, what tells what these colors mean?
There is really no gradient. You can change it to whatever you want to change it to. This is just.
I guess what I'm asking is, I mean, this is just darker because this
A higher number.
Higher
Yeah,
number.
yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't-
It's just for reference.
Visual.
So this calculation takes your volumetric efficiency. This is your volumetric efficiency number. This takes your injector cycle size and your cylinder displacement and calculates your efficiency. So if it thinks that a 6-liter is flowing 92% of the air that a 6.0 liter engine can flow, then it knows the math parameter for a 28-pound injector to fuel for that amount of air. So this is where if you've got the wrong injector data, it won't run right. If you don't have the right displacement, it won't run right. And this is the base underneath everything that you build off of. Your cranking VE is going to be based off your VE table at maximum load and the lowest RPM. So it's down here at 75% efficiency. If we put a big cam in a car and now it's less efficient at startup, but we need more air to get more fuel to make it run, and we're over, this is where HP tuners gets kind of funky. If I fix this one square right here, it's not going to fix my cranking.
So you had to feather them in.
Well, we'll close this and we're going to go to cranking VE. All right. So this is another VE table that's on top of your base table. The table we looked at before is a base table. That's the thinking for everything.
This goes from 0 to like 12 or 1,300 RPM.
So this is just for startup.
This is for cranking your car. And the base for this is that 75 that we've seen on the other map. That's where it started from. So this is the percentage of that other number. So like see where it says 100% down here, this volumetric efficiency. That means it's using all the fuel that it said it could have at 75% load on the other side. Does that make sense? So we're limited by that first number on that first map.
Yeah. So it can use 100% of
It's
the other
using
table.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I'm tuning this table and I can't get my truck to start, but I've not tuned my VE table first,
Yeah.
I'm not tuning correctly. You know,
What's this?
customer car.
How does, I know it's a dumb question, how does it know that the engine is running or not running?
Based off manifold vacuum and RPM.
Okay, so
Because you're going to be at 0 vacuum while you're cranking, or 0 manifold pressure, or, you know.
okay.
Your engine load's going to be low. And as soon as it sees your engine load increase to like, you're going to idle in that 50 kPa range, then it's going to swap you over to an idle table almost instantly.
Right.
But the only time we have problems with cranking VE is when we put a cam in something. Because overlap is less efficient. And overlap is a killer at idle. So it's kind of the opposite. It's weird when you think about, because you put a bigger cam in it and now it won't crank because it's got a lot of overlap. And you're like, well, that means we're losing, you know, vacuum, number one, and we're losing fuel because it's scavenging it out. So we have to go in here and reduce the amount of fuel that we're getting at startup, because it will just choke it to death with fuel from startup VE.
Based off of vacuum.
The new cam. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So what we'll do is, you know, a good rule of thumb on like a truck noise cam is about 15-20%, you know. And the bigger the cam, I mean, you may not have to go that much, but you just have to tinker with it. But you're always going to reduce anything in small numbers. But even your Jeep over there with that stroker motor, if when you start it, if it's really rich on startup, every time when it finally hits over, it just burns your eyes when it cranks. You need to come into your VE table when you're cranking. You start reducing these numbers. First thing you want to make sure is your other table is correct. But this is just, we're starting at the beginning, how to crank a car. This is your cranking VE table.
So when it sees lower manifold pressures, it thinks that the motor, I was going to say as much.
Yeah.
So when you put a cam and it sees lower
It
manifold
says
pressure.
higher.
Higher pressure?
Yeah, higher vacuum.
Okay, so
It's
you're saying
it's opening.
It's loading it down.
okay. So
Because it's eventually going to be, well, I guess load on the motor after it's running is going to increase. But that means,
Yeah.
you know, the cam makes less vacuum, but it has to idle up more, which makes more load on the motor because it's less efficient. You're losing efficiency with a big camshaft. That's really the only way to think about it.
at idle.
At idle.
Yeah.
So you're going to have more air and more fuel to make the same amount of power that you did with a stock cam. And to idle. But now to crank, we need less fuel to start it up.
Yeah.
So to keep it, it's kind of backwards if you think about it. I know it's weird, but we need less cranking fuel and more running fuel.
So at an idle or on startup, it's moving more air, and it thinks it needs the fuel to match. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just this cranking V set up for the factory camshaft
Okay.
that would have needed more fuel because it was more efficient.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's what you're saying. So a bulk cam is not efficient at idle.
No, not at all.
It's,
Any cam. would be
Well, a truck
more
Norris
than-
cam is probably the most tame, you know, in the 5.3.
I like lengths.
I was like, any aftermarket upgraded cam
It's going to reduce efficiency at
Yeah.
low RPM because you're gaining high RPM.
He offended somebody the other day because they was wanting a cam, and they wanted the 7,000. The cam for 7,000 RPMs. He's like, "Well, get a truck Norris cam." He said, "That's where you normally drive it." He said, "I don't want that." He's like, I don't remember the story. It's just funny because like everybody thinks you need the 7,000 RPM cam, but
yeah.
realistically,
when are you going to be at 7,000 RPM?
If they would make a truck Norris cam with 18 degrees overlap, it would be what everybody wants because it would be the hole in the ground and still make torque.
Yeah.
Those two things don't really work.
Matt Rim shared that thing. And said, "What kind of cam do you want?" He's like, I want the chop chop.
Yeah,
I want the chop
that's
chop.
all you got to do. So let's just go back to our home screen. So when this is our VCM editor. This is where we change the parameters in vehicle.
Okay.
So start at the top. File, this is where you would go find. So I want to open. This is that tune file I just pulled off of HP Tuners. You can rename this to, let's see.
Oh, you don't have access to it.
Yeah, because it's mine. I got it off of mine. I logged in as me. But either way, you can rename them like after you edit it, but save, open. Here we go. So you go to file, all your tunes. When you pull a tune off a Jeep, you'll have to name it to save it. So all you can do, like me, like mine says 2002 Jeep or 2002 Silverado 6.0 Truck Norris or 2009 LS3 Stage 1. You know, so I can kind of go. But you would go here to open, and then you would save. You know, just hit open, and that's going to open that tune file in your editor, so you can then start on it. You can do. This is where I'm probably going to go get mine. So we got some files, but OS, operating software. This is where you're going to change from a 1-bar factory to a 2-bar. So you'll come here to, this is speed density. So if you wanted a factory Chevrolet pickup runs a mass airflow sensor. If you wanted to rewrite it to run on speed density, then we would come here and put in this enhanced RTT style speed density operating system. 3-bar and a 1-bar MAF. We're not really going to run a 1-bar MAF unless you've maybe upgraded your mass airflow sensor to something later model.
So will that even pop up on Jeep? No. Shouldn't.
It should, because operating software.
No, the map, the mass airflow.
This would be like if you wanted to put a mass airflow sensor on a Jeep and it didn't have one from the factory.
Oh.
This will be HP tuners letting you write in a line to where you could add a mass airflow sensor.
Okay.
Because let's just say a Silverado never come with a 3-bar map sensor, but we can put one on it now.
Okay.
So we would apply a 2-bar map, and it's going to ask you, follow these steps, and that will put your map sensor on your Jeep to a 2-bar. There's still going to be some tuning to tell it. Now it's going to go here.
I don't know if y'all can see me, but I'm pretty sure 1 bar means it registers up to
1 bar is what, like
14
pounds?
Some 14,
basically 0,
14.5 pounds.
0 vacuum, right?
Atmospheric pressure.
Atmospheric pressure. Like, it's weird, but right now, what are we? We're negative
We're negative.
14, give or take.
Yeah.
So 1 bar will read up to 0 psi. It's weird. And then a 2 bar will register
Positive 14.
Positive 14. So that'll hopefully we don't make over 14 pounds of boost. But yeah, if we was making even more boost, we'd have to step up to 2 bar, 3 bar.
Yeah, 1 bar is 14.5 pounds.
Yep.
So that's
That's what we walk around at.
confusing, but
And this is where it'll change. So you'll come into your volumetric efficiency table or speed density table, or let's just call it volumetric efficiency because that's what it is. So we went to engine here, and this is our main VE. We click primary VE, and right now it goes to 100 kPa, which is the same thing as 14 psi.
Yeah.
You'll then go to 200 kPa on your new 2-bar map sensor. So that will give you, anytime you cross over 100 kPa, you're in boost.
now does it filter in, or what's the word? Does it?
It's going to fill in the squares, but they're not going to be right.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
It's not just going to pull up blank.
So
Right.
if you change that to a 2 bar right now, so is it going to add?
It's going to add another 10 squares down, or well, 20 squares because they're in increments of 5.
And it'll roughly fill it in for just a rough tune.
Not really. It'll just put some numbers in it. I wouldn't trust it.
Oh, okay.
What you can do is, this is where we'll go through our features with HP tuners. So we've got the ability to look at it in graph form, which is what we're looking at now, or we can look at it in chart form. This is a stock map. See how smooth this is, and you can, oh gosh, don't make a mess.
Oh, it looks terrible.
Yeah. If you do anything like that, you hit this button here, and take it off.
Okay.
This is spun around, and I can't spin it around because you got
My mouse plugged straight in.
probably you got to use 2 fingers to do it.
Yes.
But you can. It almost looks like a dyno graph.
Yeah.
Your volumetric efficiency table does, because it's going to go up. You can see your manifold pressure on the side. You see your RPM across the time. It's going to look kind of like a dyno looks and falls off. You see a lot of tunes where they'll have just as much or more fuel at wide open throttle than they do at peak torque. And you know this, an engine's not as, a junk engine is not as efficient at wide open as it is at peak torque.
Right.
It's not built for that. Now maybe,
That's why transmissions shift where they do most of the time.
yeah, unless you had a full-on dragster with a giant camshaft,
Right.
and it was very efficient.
Well, prime example is the Cletus's car they built. You watch the dyno graph on it.
It never ends.
It never ends. It just
Yeah.
kept going.
We didn't get there. Well, on here, we got there already, So you can always come in here and look at this and kind of go, wow, I've got a big spike like I had, or,
It's like I've always said from day one. It's like most any stock vehicle you drive, like 3/4 throttle and full throttle,
No different.
no difference.
But if you drive the 1,000 horsepower rock bouncer, that half to full throttle
But
makes
it is the difference.
yeah. That's the only vehicle I ever drove, my rock bouncer. If you give it, like he said, any normal vehicle like a Jeep, if you give it half throttle to full throttle, there is no difference usually. But my bouncer, it's a very efficient engine. If you give it half throttle, you got half horsepower. If you go ahead and floor it, you'll know the difference.
all right, so we'll look at it like this.
Your bouncer's in a very efficient engine.
I think so. Well,
Up high it is.
Up high.
Above 6,000.
it's efficient for making horsepower, not efficient for
So this like I said, this looks like a dyno graph, and this is our lowest RPM. As we make power, it's backwards right now, but as we make power, our volumetric efficiency goes up, which means this engine is flowing the most amount of air that 6 liters can flow at 4,500 RPM. So the computer, the computer does the math and says at this volumetric efficiency, at 98% efficient for a 6-liter engine, we need to take this 28-pound fuel injector and spray X amount of fuel in it. So if you needed more fuel, because you've changed your camshaft and now you're making more power out here because it's efficient now, you would move your volumetric efficiency up and it would fuel for that in return. So you're never adding fuel, you're just correcting your airflow and then it fuels for that airflow.
And so without a dyno, we don't know nothing.
No, you don't have to have a dyno. You can straight tune anything.
You can drive it.
Well, you just be basing off air fuel ratio.
Correct. Which is exactly what they're doing. You're just going to have to drive it instead of sitting in one spot.
Okay.
So as you drive it down the road, we'll get into the scanner later.
Like I guess what he's trying to say, I'm doing it in simple terms, like if you're driving it down the road, you haven't done anything to the tune at all, you floor it, or
it's not going to have enough fuel here.
Once it gets in that area right there, it's going to start leaning out. I'm assuming. Leaning out.
If you had
a bigger can.
And then you're going to back off of it and be like, hey, I need to
add fuel.
Yep. And what you'll do is you can come to your scanner if we had it set up, which I'll probably pull mine in here for the scanner. But this is a representation of that map we were just looking at. All right. Let me do a little massaging over here. All right. So, this is what we'll be data logging. This is a very base, this come with it. This doesn't have any of the information we need, but this is what it would look like. We would have our RPM across the top, we would have our manifold pressure down the side. We would have our wideband data logging actual EQ ratio versus commanded EQ ratio. So as we're driving in all of these little boxes, there's going to be a percentage of how far off we were from our commanded air fuel ratio. So if it's commanding 12.5 out here at 5,000, and because we didn't change our tune and it's lean, it's going to need 20% more fuel. It'll say it right here. It'll say positive 20. We take that information, we can copy it, we can take all this information and we can copy it. We can go back over to our VCM editor. We can go back to where it looks the same way, and we can highlight and we can paste special here, which we don't have anything to paste, and we can multiply this table by that percentage that our wideband told us we were off.
So basically it's tuning itself.
I mean, you're telling it the numbers, it's just changing them for you.
Yeah, that's what, well.
You can do them by hand if you want to, or you can paste them in.
Yeah.
But, you know, like if we were 15% off right here, your scanner would tell you how much you need to tune it. And then you would go over here and add your 15%. Or the more you drive it, the more it's going to populate that scanner to look like, where's it at? Here, to look like that other chart. You want to get as much data in this as you can.
Yeah.
So when you're working on one of these, this is how you set up a histogram. We'll do this later, but you can fill in what you want charted and how you want it charted and how many times it's got to see it before it puts a number and the colors and all that. But
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it's not hard, but it's got to match. And
the wideband, is that using the vehicle's O2 or is that using an
aftermarket wideband? So I have ProLink, and oops, go ahead.
This might be boring, but I've learned a lot in 10 minutes. I feel like it may be longer than 10.
It's lower than 10.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Where are we at? Oh, we're only 27 minutes in.
It's a lot of information to absorb.
I'm like you, I may actually be going back and watching this video.
Alright, so this is mine. And you can tell I've got 875 more charts. But anything you want to plot over here on the right, you have to have it on the left. So if you don't have a wideband, you can tune with your narrowband. This will take your fuel trims and they will make a percentage of error just like wideband would. It's just a lot less accurate and takes a lot more time, but it is completely doable. It's just not the best way.
That's taking a factory O2 sensor.
Factory O2 sensor, and it's going to have your, say, EQ commanded down here on the bottom, this box here. This is my airflow, my air fuel ratio that I'm commanding. So if I pull up a log file,
What's EQ?
equivalency ratio, so call it trash run, because I think it had some pretty decent data. So we were commanding, well, it didn't command because I didn't have my wideband on, but, or did I? Yeah, okay, over here. Air fuel ratio commanded, 12.96. You see it?
Yep. Commanded. That's,
Yep.
yep.
All right, and this is what we were commanding. My actual air fuel ratio was 13.2. So I was leaner than the commanded air fuel ratio by a little bit. So this is where you know how far off you are if you, in percentage terms.
That's what so my O2 will hook into that? My wideband? Because it says AEM, that's,
Yes, you'll have to have ProLink,
okay.
which is just to plug into the side of your, when you buy your MPVI 3, just get the ProLink out of it. And you'll have to create a channel for that, but that's going to be some.
What'd you just say? When you buy what?
When you buy your MPVI 2 or 3,
What's MPV?
that's going to be the
MPV?
MPVI.
Is that the dongle?
Yeah, that's the name of the dongle.
Dongle. Never thought I'd be saying dongle.
I just call it dongle. I don't think that's the correct one. So this is a tube. This is what plugs into your computer, obviously, and not everybody has this. You know, just your typical people. But all this is what they call their ProLink, which gives me the ability to add channels to it that aren't coming out of the car.
So that goes to the wideband.
Yeah. So I've wired it up to a wideband with a cigarette lighter, so I can just screw my wideband in your car, plug it into a cigarette lighter, and I don't have to have anything from your car. It's all self-sustainable.
Okay.
And you have to build the channel.
Stand up recording right on.
You have to build the channel for it to, like this AEM sensor. You can go up here and copy and paste, but you can see as you drive on these, it populates numbers. So this was our spark table, for instance. This is as we were driving, it was filling in these squares to tell what my timing was at any given point in the drive. And you can see down here, like anytime there's a spike is like when you accelerated on the pedal. So you can see, like, you can kind of go back through and replay the drive. Like I think I did a burnout right here. And you can see my,
So for all those little, that's what it actually recorded
while I was driving.
in that particular spot.
I don't know that I actually did anything crazy on this one, but you can just see here, I'm accelerating.
He's at 40% throttle.
Yeah, and I'm doing 40 mile an hour. We're running 24 degrees of timing. My coolant temp's 205. My mass airflow frequency is 8,000. Theoretical torque was 300 foot-pounds. That's based off your volumetric efficiency table. My injector duty cycle is 26% because I'm running a big injector on the NA motor. I'm not really taxing my injector at all. And the dynamic airflow and your mass airflow grams per second flow. I don't have my VE grams per second airflow math parameter set up for this, but we can go up here and we can look where we're at on our manifold pressure and our RPM, and we can see where we were at as far as our grams per second airflow. But this just kind of tells you,
Will it
roughly.
eventually fill in all those boxes? So you got
You're gonna fill it's gonna fill in this diagonal form, because this is the normal running of an engine under load. You're very seldom going to be at a lot of load with no RPM,
okay.
and you're very seldom going to be at high RPM with no load.
That makes sense.
So as your RPM increases, your load increases because you're pulling a hill or you're whatever, taking off. You idle in that 1.2 at 1200 RPM range.
Yeah.
Very little, load. Like when I cold started, I probably was at 27.5 by itself. This is probably when I cold started where it was sitting there idling, right here.
Gotcha.
So, and as it warmed up, it idled back down into this 1000 RPM column axis and stayed in that load range. And you can just go see, all right, I knew I idled right here for forever. This is where I was idling at. This truck actually idles right out here. It was 2000, that's not us driving. Idling, right here. Yeah.
980.
Yeah, so that was cold idle, and then probably here at the end, we're idling again, 850. This is a lot of overlap with the big cam. That's about as
His
low as
transmission went from 100 degrees to 145 degrees.
Well, it's so funny we're looking at different stuff. When it was cold, it was commanded, or let's see, right now it's
it's more efficient. It's warmed up. We're at operating temperature.
Yeah.
We're at 210 coolant temp. Where thermostat's open. Now we can come down here and we can idle. But
Air intake was 63, even after he did all that.
big cold air intake, good cool day. But
that's a lot of numbers. Now I'm starting to understand some.
if I didn't have a wideband and I was so I'm only running speed density right now on my truck. So my mass airflow sensor is turned off and my fuel trims are turned off. That's why they're 0. I am my fuel trims because when you run a wideband, I don't need my car tuning itself.
Yeah, you want to be the tuner.
I want to be in charge. But you could essentially let the fuel trims adjust while you're driving and then multiply your tune file by the adjustments made by your computer, and that would get you closer to right. You could repeatedly do that until it was pretty close. And for a stock truck with a mild cam, that's completely doable. But this is where you would come in and go under this mass airflow frequency versus long-term and short-term fuel trims, or just one or the other. So a mass airflow sensor is a linear sensor that only plots a frequency, a hertz frequency, like a guitar string makes a noise. So as air flows by this wire, it has a frequency. And that frequency is associated with an amount of air. And that amount of air gets a set amount of fuel. So the higher the frequency, the more air that went by, so the more fuel we put in the motor. We can increase this number on the bottom. So we're pretty much telling it at a said frequency, we're getting more air than we were before because our engine is now more efficient. So if we had a camshaft and we wanted to tune our mass airflow sensor, which I personally like mass airflow sensors. I think on an NA truck, they're a great tool. You can, because it's a super accurate reading.
Yeah.
And you can come in here and you can go compare your wideband or your short-term fuel trims against this number right here. So if you go to your tune and you're driving down the road, it's going to put you a percentage number right here. It's going to say 10, 20, 5, 7, whatever, positive or negative. That means it added or took away to get to the correct air-fuel ratio that you were commanded over here on the left side. So if I was commanding 14.6, my short-term fuel trims are trying to get that actual number as close to 14.6 as they can. So they're adding fuel and taking fuel away while you're driving, and it's adjusting your mass airflow sensor's fuel table or air table to get you to that commanded number.
Based off what the mass airflow is reading?
Based off what the short-term fuel trims are seeing, based off what the narrowband oxygen sensors are seeing. Your oxygen sensors are what tell it to add or take away fuel. So if you see mine are plugged in, I think one of them's unplugged. The green one maybe is unplugged because that's where my wideband is.
Yeah.
So the purple one, the BSS one, bank one, sensor one, it's kind of stuck in the middle there. So it's not adding or taking away any fuel right now.
Yeah.
It may be the opposite. One of them's working and one of them's not. I don't remember which one.
Well, the purple one, or
Probably it's flatlined. It's probably not plugged in. So if the green one was if I was letting it make adjustments to my file right now, it's up, which means that it's rich. it's going to start pulling fuel until that voltage gets back down to 0.4. And then if it drops below 0.4, it's going to add fuel till it gets it back to 0.4. And that percentage of change gets plotted against my mass airflow sensor's frequency. So it will learn this new number so it doesn't have to adjust it anymore.
Okay. My attention span's not very great, so let's just not do mass airflow.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Because we don't have.
Mass airflow sensors.
I get they're a great tool, but
Well,
that's what you was just saying. Could you actually add one to a Jeep tune?
probably.
Probably.
If it lets you. So we'll go back to
There's a lot to learn, but I feel like there's still a whole lot more to learn. Because we ain't even mentioned timing or
no.
engine cooled engine.
So this is my truck.
I was looking at engine coolant temperature over there. It goes all the way up to like 240.
We hope not. So this is my truck, and we're gonna. So when you're in your file, say you want to go and you want to file. We've been tuning on the Turbo Jeep. You got it saved in here as Turbo Jeep. You open that file, and you want to go, man, I've messed it up.
I'll step back.
I want to go and see what it was before I messed it up. You open your current file, or you would download it. So my current file is this one. So this is the one that's in the truck right now. And I ain't real sure what I've done wrong. We'll go here to compare file, open compare file. I'm going to scroll down until I find the last time my truck was running good. And I saved that tune. And we'll go with this one. So now we can go to our engine, and we're going to go to our airflow, which is where we adjust our fuel tank. We're going to go to our VE table because my truck runs off VE. And we can compare where it's different. Obviously, I didn't change my VE between these two tunes. But if you needed to adjust back to where you used to be, you could set all these numbers to 0, and it would put you back on your other two.
That would just show you the differences.
But what did I do wrong? Well, here it is.
If the two was different, those numbers would show high or low, plus or minus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, fun fact. Let's see what y'all see here. Because this is what's wrong with my truck, and I haven't fixed it.
RPM.
This is my volumetric efficiency table.
What actually are the numbers?
So that's how efficient the truck is. Let me reduce the decimal points because that'll maybe make it make more sense to you.
That's what I'm like.
All right. So this is a 6-liter truck, and it's got a big nasty cam in it.
So what?
If the single-digit 1 would be that engine at its most efficient possible running condition.
So you're over fueling it towards the end there?
Because I run out of fuel pump.
Oh, okay.
So this is how I figured out my fuel pump wasn't big enough.
So
I was commanding more fuel.
You're commanding, we'll call it 60% more.
Let's just say 6 pounds of boost, 7 pounds of boost. I was fueling for 7 pounds of boost right here.
Yeah.
But my pump
you ran out of
fuel.
Okay.
So
That's my phone.
Jerry Morris. Later.
So you don't ever want to go on HP tuners. There is a small chance, like in this high efficiency range, this 5 to 5600 range, that I might want with my fuel pump. When I put a right fuel pump in it, all these positive 1.2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all going to go away because I'm not going to be trying to overfuel it. So you might see a 1.1, which essentially means we're fueling for more air than your engine can flow.
Right.
If we're at 1, that's the most amount of air that this motor can flow.
This is turbo.
No, this is naturally aspirated. But I run out of fuel pump. So just imagine that I was trying to force a fuel pump to put more fuel in than it thought it needed.
Okay.
So if you go in and you fix this problem,
I have to retune this map.
so it won't fix itself.
No.
No.
It's going to fuel for 1.7.
So it's
It's going to double my fuel.
Okay.
And it would, because now it has the ability to flow the fuel. What's happening now is once I get over about 5,000 RPM and decent load, my air fuel ratio is commanded 12, but it's actually 14.
Right.
It's lean. And it's
So if
just,
you don't change anything and you go back and put a fuel pump in, it's probably going to end up at like.
it's going black the plugs
Okay.
before it gets down the road.
So basically, this tune, and it's confusing, I know, but he built a motor and he kept leaning out towards the end, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And he kept changing numbers, trying to make everything match. And from what he's saying, didn't know he's running out of fuel pump. So he was commanding more fuel, and you see the numbers are way overkill.
Yeah, I just kept throwing numbers at it because I was like, I'll see how far this pump can go.
Yeah.
And obviously, it when I got to maybe 1.2 and 1.3, it quit increasing or decreasing my air fuel ratio.
At that point, you probably knew something was wrong.
And I was just like, I'm gonna see what it'll throw at it, and it didn't change anything. It runs your injector duty cycle up because it's trying to fuel, but it doesn't have the pressure.
Yeah.
So it just kept trying, but
Yeah.
it's not the flow's not there.
Yeah.
So I'll go back once we've got the correct fuel pump, and we don't have to tell it we got the right fuel pump anymore because your flow's not going to decrease. The fuel pressure is still the same. It's just volume's going to increase.
Yeah.
We'll just come in here and correct this, but this is just for your understanding of we're fueling for the air that's coming through the engine, and on all of yours they're going to be like this. Now the main thing that's now that we understand volumetric efficiency, we'll go over at idle. So you have an efficiency table for idle as well.
I just
More numbers.
looking at the numbers, yeah.
So this is how much airflow that we have at an idle. We're fueling for air again. We're never changing fuel, we're always changing air. So if you've got the big nasty overlap cam that's sucking all your fuel out in the exhaust, and you need to put more fuel in it so it can run.
And this is going off temperature as it heats up. It's
As your engine becomes more efficient based off coolant temp, you're obviously going to need less. But this is, my truck starts great on this, except my cranking V is a little lean right now because I just pulled like 50% out of it. But this is not cranking V, this is idling. My truck cranks, idles, runs great. It'll idle for 3 days. I use my wideband. Once I got it running, I want to see, between 13, 2, 3, 4, and low 14 at idle, because that's the most efficient burning of gasoline is the 14.23 AFR. Or Lambda would be 1. So in Lambda is easier to read. It's the same reading, just another measurement.
So what actually is that number in the columns? I see degrees and I see gear and part neutral.
So this is how much air is flowing into the engine
Is that based on?
in idle, at idle.
Is that the number you create, assumption, or is that a mass airflow?
You can use your mass airflow sensor to help you get this number, but you've got to know, you've got to do this yourself, and you've got to look at your air fuel ratio. You've got to see how your car's running. You can really, so what I like to do is you can go by camshaft. So if my factory camshaft required 5 grams per second at 198 degrees, all right, and we go up in camshaft by, power wise, what is this, 30, 40, 50%, we're going to need 30, 40, 50% more fuel right out of the gate. Well, that's that wide open.
Yeah.
Idle, you're going to need double the amount of fuel on a cam that big. Minimum. I'm going to come in here and multiply my factory air table by 2 just to get the thing to crank, because it won't even crank. If you had a factory idle table and you put a decent sized cam and you're fueling for that factory amount of air, because that tight lobe separation and that tiny duration and that 0 overlap was so efficient that it needed just a squirt of fuel to run that motor at idle. Well, now you're slobbering it out the exhaust ports, and you've got, less vacuum because you've got all this overlap. You're going to have to squirt more fuel in there so it can actually get something to burn. So you're going to double, maybe 2.5, just right out of the gate, and get it to run. And then you can kind of adjust based off your dynamic air. So you can go in and you can look at your mass airflow grams per second flow. This is how we're measuring our flow right here, grams per second. Another thing with HP tuners is it gives you 1,000 different measurements. And we can change pounds per hour, pounds per minute, pounds per second, kilograms per second, all this crap. I want something that makes sense. Grams per second makes sense because that's what we tune in when we're looking.
Yeah.
This just is the easiest number for me. Some people like pounds per hour, but grams per second to me is the most nominal, smallest number that's the most efficient number of decimals.
So once again, those numbers are just
Amount of air.
theoretical numbers, basically.
No, this would be what you're fueling for. This would be your actual airflow.
But how do you determine the numbers? Is what I'm getting at. Like,
Well, you get a base number. This is where it's hard to read airflow out of an idle because there's not really a accurate way to measure it. So you're just pretty much let's call it an educated guess until you get to there.
that's kind of
But you can use like dynamic air here. So see how my dynamic air. If I've got all of my stuff set up, if my VE table's right, my injector data's right, all that jazz is right, then this is what it's telling me based off of my engine size and injector size. This is how much air the computer thinks is flowing through the truck.
so it takes
15 grams per second.
so it takes the size of the motor and takes the
RPM.
Injector duty cycle.
takes how much fuel it's throwing at it, and then
Mhm.
takes the O2 and calculates all that
Yep.
to figure out how much air is moving through the motor.
And so my mass airflow sensor, which it's not changing anything right now. It's at 25 grams per second at an idle. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's not right because we're not flowing 25 grams per second of air. We're probably somewhere in between the two. I don't know why my mass airflow sensor don't work. I guess I've got junk on it or it's just a piece of crap. But I'm not using it right now, so I don't care.
It's
But-
just a measurement.
But if it was right, if we had a good known mass airflow sensor, we could compare our mass airflow reading to our dynamic air reading, and we want those numbers as close to each other as we can get.
Okay.
Because this is how much air is actually coming in and how much air it thinks is coming in.
So if you had injectors wrong, those numbers wouldn't match.
It would never match. You'd be trying to get them in the same place, or say you've stroked out your Jeep from 4.0 to 5.0, and you didn't tell the computer that it's now a 5 liter. The dynamic air is going to be less than your actual mass airflow sensor because the mass airflow sensor is going to see all this extra liter of displacement coming in, and that's not going to know it because you told it was a 4 liter.
Makes sense. That's funny. If you're getting bored of this, that stroker over there, if you just crank it up and stand where the exhaust comes out, have you stood back there?
Mm-hmm.
You can just tell like it's moving more air than a Ford.
Physically flowing more air.
Yeah. And we've got bigger injectors in it, but the computer don't know that. So yeah, like all this stuff is yeah.
There are 1,000 other things that you will have to have. Why did we go? There we go. That you'll have to get your idle to work. Running idle airflow is the most important thing. If you have an IAC motor, like an older drive-by cable, you can change your effective steps. So an IAC motor has a set amount of steps that it can move, say 300 steps. We can increase or decrease the amount of air that each step changes.
That's the idle air control valve, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And so if your base airflow is bad off and your IAC motor's trying to fix it for you, and you've got a stock IAC setup, it's not going to have the ability to move enough air with its current setting to maybe save you.
Is that why when we first cranked that? Remember when we first cranked it up, it just went wide open on us?
Which one?
The stroker motor. We cranked it up on the stand, and
Why did it do that?
you remember that?
Yeah.
When we first fired it up, that thing went like high idle, and then
just for no reason, it come back down.
Mm-hmm. It's like it gave up trying to do what it was trying to do.
Well,
Let's just not
yeah,
stress that.
let's
Yeah.
say,
If you remember the video, hope I clipped the scene in. Like the first time that stroker ever fired up, it literally crunk up good,
it crunk up good,
and then just run away about $3,000. And I was standing there looking around like, what
header
I
was
do?
glowing. Like
Headers was glowing.
It was really lean.
Awesome.
It was super lean because it was running a tune for half the size engine, or essentially 25% less.
That's where me and Justin got confused. I think you're right because the headers was glowing, but we was curious. Like we did the math, we overfueled it per injector size versus stock. Like the motor, we gained what, 15%?
Did you tell it had bigger injectors?
No, that's
So
what.
it was. We can go over that here.
Yeah, that's confusing.
So if we go to fuel and we go to injector flow rate versus KPA, this is the size of the injector. This is where injector data makes all the difference in the world, because we need to know in the flow rate versus volts, we need to know the flow rate versus pressure, we need to know the minimum injector pulse width. So when you buy quality injectors, it's going to have all this information for you to put in. So say this is probably a 36-pound injector, I believe. This scale is how it runs. So
With NA.
yeah, this is just so by my displacement and this size injector, it pulses that injector the correct amount of times to fuel for that commanded air fuel ratio. So if this number's wrong, if your pressure is wrong on your injector, then it's pulsing for a bigger or smaller injector to correct your fuel. But that's not right. So for your particular vehicle, you are flowing, let's say it's a 60-pound injector in your flow rate, but it said it was a 20, in your tune file.
Yeah.
So now it's doing, and it could be all wrong. Could be your flow rate versus volts is wrong, and because they're different injectors, there's no telling how much fuel you were getting because the injector is different. So all it knows is what you tell it.
Yeah.
So it knows that if I'm at 14 and air fuel ratio means I'm lean, I need to add some fuel. Comes over here, well, this is a 6-liter engine, so I need to pulse this 37-pound injector 10 times per second, to start correcting my fuel ratio. And it does that to do it. And where you need bigger injectors is because the more you pulse it, the more your duty cycle goes up. Well, you can essentially max out a small injector with duty cycle, and it can't get you any richer than you are right now.
it literally doesn't have enough time in the
duty cycle. Or in the pulse width modulation.
Right.
Like it's pulsing as much as it can pulse, and the air fuel ratio is not decreasing. So you will go to a bigger injector. So essentially you go to a bigger injector, you've reduced your injector duty cycle, you've reduced your pulse width. It's working less to do the same amount of work.
Yeah.
And
I'm thinking of this in my head as like a pressure washer versus a water hose versus a sewer pipe. Like
yeah.
This is where like we had my bouncer screwed up. Is like I don't remember if it was mine. We went from 80-pound injectors to 44, and like the other dude, well, I can say Tim Cameron because he blocked me, but his Menace had 120-pound injectors, and like at a decent idle, I think they was at like 4%. So like the computer, I think at wide open, he said they was at like 20%. So you're asking like a bulldozer to spread sand. You're asking like something way too big to do a little bitty job, and it just can't be done. So yeah, what he's saying,
it's doable.
Yeah.
It's harder to do, and that's where a lot of performance engines run 2 sets of injectors.
Yeah.
So you'll have 2 charts as you're fueling, and you'll have a crossover chart for your bigger injectors that comes in.
Yeah.
But
so is that true that if you this is probably not running where it says flood clear, if you put the TPS to the floor, it quits fueling injectors?
Yep.
I-
On a Chevrolet.
Okay, I've always heard that, but I thought it was a myth.
Where you do what now?
My bouncer, when it would flood, or when it would flood, they'd say, go ahead, and they'd say, put it to the floor and it'll quit
It
fueling
disables
injectors.
your fuel injectors.
Okay. I've heard that, but I didn't know if it's true or not. So if you flood a fuel injected, well, this is Chevrolet, I don't know about
Yeah.
Jeep. If you see it says 80%, if you go past 80%, it's going to quit fueling in injectors, and I don't know what disabled TPS means.
It's if you get below 75% throttle position sensor,
Oh, that's just
it's
telling
going
it.
to re-engage your
That's,
fuel
that's
injector.
telling it to cut them, and that's telling it
Yeah,
to come back.
above 80, it's flood clear is enabled, and as you let off below 75, flood clear is disabled.
That's it. Let's get straight to it. Where's the rev limiter?
Yeah. Well, if you crank it on the floor, it's not going to crank.
We've been wanting to change the rev limiter on the Cherokee so much.
Well,
Yeah,
I would
instead of it, bomb, bomb, bomb. We want
If we go over
to
here-
narrow that down a little bit.
to systems.
We're gonna be the lucky ones. It's gonna be hardwired into it where we can't change it.
Well, you did on your blue one. Remember years ago? With
Yeah,
just
but
a little plug-in?
it didn't change it. It just raised it, I think. Well, I don't remember.
It just raised it. But
I could do it on my Subaru. I remember that. You could change the.
right now, I think we
Go back. Speed limiter.
We don't have one of those.
255.
We're hoping.
But if you didn't know, like a rev limiter is set at 5,500, it'll cut and then it'll come back on at like 5,000. So that gives you one bum or one bum bum. But if you go in there and set it to like 5,500 and 5,450, it's like
Yeah.
So that's something that we'll learn. But you can tell we're pretty green. Is that the word?
So
Yes.
I'm gonna have to give you this on a computer. Just let you go home one night. And just
this is our. This is.
We need a jump Jeep
yeah.
to.
Well, I mean, we're going to have to come back and tune something one day. This is just kind of understanding what we're
Yeah.
looking at.
this is perfect.
This is Spark. So we kind of vaguely grasp air and volumetric efficiency. So this is on our high octane and low octane. This is your main two tables. So your high octane table is where your car is going to run unless it sees knock through the knock sensors, and it's going to default you to a low octane table. And then all of these over here are what we call modifiers. So
you can fix piston slap.
you can listen for piston slap.
Where you see
Top
that?
dead center.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if it hears piston slap through the knock sensors, it can actually pull timing for that, and that was a big issue on the 6.2s and even the LS1s. This is your modifier for E85 if you have an E85 sensor. This computer, obviously, in 04 they made a Tahoe that was flex fuel. So this computer has the ability to run a flex fuel sensor, and it would adjust your fuel based off their timing based off the amount of ethanol in the fuel.
Is stuff like that even gonna pop up on a tune for?
That's what I
A
was.
Jeep, we can go pull a file off a Jeep.
I was just.
but-
I mean.
Yeah, I mean probably not. It's probably gonna have less than all of this, but you need to know all of this to understand.
Yeah.
Don't hurt to learn it.
Yeah, I mean this is just kind of
I mean, I feel like I'm
Overview.
getting ahead of myself. But I
That's
was,
what I'm sitting here curious too. If you go pull one off one ton of 96, well, that's a 96 right there.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna be. I mean, you think.
We're gonna have three tabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
which is great for us.
Yeah, it's fine until you get on something else and you're like, I don't know what all these numbers do. But let's just say IAT. That's the one that should be on a Jeep. So this is going to adjust your fuel based off your intake air temp sensor. So we really need that to work. If we're seeing,
So-
200-degree intake temps, we need to start pulling some time out.
Oh, IAT. I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking idle air control valve. I was like, wait a second.
No.
Yeah, I don't.
Intake air. Is,
So
Jeep has that, doesn't it?
it should.
Intake air temp.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is pretty simple. Based off our air mass and our temp, we can reduce timing. So if we get up here and you're whooping on your motor,
Hey, that'd be handy because Jeeps, when you get them really hot, they start pinging.
Mm-hmm.
So we could tune that out.
Retard the timing.
and that would be what I would do under
Does it go to like
engine coolant temp.
Does it go to 300 degrees?
Well, no, this is
It
coolant
does.
temp. So when you overheat your engine,
It starts.
it
Pulling.
starts pulling timing. So let's just say I got a buddy with a derby car that likes to knock the radiator off of it.
Start.
Anytime he gets over like 190, I pull 5 degrees. Anytime he gets over 210, I pull 15 degrees. Anytime he gets over 220, I pull 25 degrees. It ain't gonna run, you know, and I saved his motor.
If that may not make sense to some people, but what he's saying, if you start bouncing, let's say you go Jeep riding, you get drunk, you're not paying attention to that temperature gauge, and the temperature starts running away.
You could literally tune this to where it shut the motor down.
You couldn't move it.
Yeah.
But what he's doing is taking the timing out once it gets to like 250 degrees, you know, that's hot. So he's pulling timing where the motor simply is just flatlined. So it's literally trying to save itself, I guess.
He's literally turned it into a Briggs and Stratton lawnmower motor.
That works, but at the same time, if it starts getting hot and you started like over fueling it, would that cool the motor back down?
Probably not. Not at that point. I'd be more worried you'd just be dumping fuel in the exhaust manifold.
Yeah, you'd make
And build a fire.
Yeah.
So pulling timing just creates a duller flame, I guess is the word you'd say. Okay.
Well, I mean, if you're pulling timing, and I don't know what fuel would do, but if you start pulling timing,
You can increase your fuel based off your.
it's going to be throwing fuel,
That's
and the time is going to be so far back that it's barely going to be burning the fuel
Well,
anyway.
it's actually the opposite. It would be firing like pulling timing means you would, instead of it firing 26 degrees before TDC.
Yeah, it's backwards.
It's backwards.
Okay, yeah.
So
I always get that confused.
It's very confusing. So instead of it firing 26 degrees before that crankshaft is TDC, now it's firing essentially at TDC. So it's just barely igniting that fuel. So you're getting a weaker.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Almost done.
Yeah, almost done, right?
Oh yeah. We can, you know.
That's what. Like Lance is very good, but I think me and Justin are on the same path. Like we probably have to do step 2 of this video because he's going to have to teach us the basics. Me and Justin's going to have to struggle our butt off to learn, and then once we know what we're doing, I feel like he'll come back in. I know it'll make sense because a month from now when he comes back and be like, oh, you're going to change IAC modular width, pulse width. Yeah.
So
You forget, Red Jeep's a 96 model. We can do this.
One time.
No, my Jeep, 4-cylinder.
So this is a stock.
That's why I picked that one. That's a 96.
Interesting.
We may have to say, well, camera battery died. What Lance just said, if you follow me enough, I've always said in 95, I don't even know if you've heard this, in 95, Jeep had the actual cast pistons and they weighed 21 to 22 grams. 96, they went to the new
lighter weight.
They shaved about 6 grams, so about 15 grams per piston. Now you do the math across the board, 6, that's a lot of lost weight, rotating mass, and all that up and down stuff. So I think, my personal opinion, 96 was the first year, and if you've ever drove any 96, they run freaking insanely good. Like just sound like a built motors, bomb, bomb, bomb. So I think when they come out with the new pistons, they just didn't get the tune where they wanted it to.
Also, that was the first year of OBD2.
Yep, first year OBD2. So I think somewhere along that line, they just maybe accidentally spiced up the tune because of the lighter pistons.
Because in 97, 98, they went back down.
It seems like 96 was here, 97 was here, 98 was here, 99.
Did the compression ratio change on the new style pistons?
No.
All it is lighter pistons. So we'll educate more on that. But what he just said, I don't think the camera was on. What did you just say?
So if you were tuning your Jeep and you wanted a safe ignition time and tune, what you can do is you can pull a 95, a 96, a 97, 98, 99, 2000 up to whatever, and you can compare all of your factory spark tables. And let's just say this is a 2000 Corvette, so this would be an LS1 car. This is how much time in Chevrolet said it could have, and it would stay alive. So these people are really smart, smarter than us. They knew this would survive. You could essentially do that with your Jeep. Find the most efficient 4-liter tune that Jeep made. Be a really good baseline spark table. So you don't have to go making up these numbers.
That's what he was saying before the cameras. Like you go through across all LS stuff. Like I'm not a big LS guru, but if you know that a 99 LS run better than a 06 LS or something of that nature, you know it's relatively the same motor, but through the years they changed tunes, and you know nobody knows that. But that's what he was saying. Like you think of him tuning an LS, not knocking him down. You think of him tuning an LS, or you think of the Chevrolet GM factory that have dynos spend years of development and tuning and tools that we can't afford. So yeah, steal their information if you can.
Well, and this is a prime example of how much smarter they are than we are. So if we're looking at 100 on our cylinder air mass, okay, and that's our when we're using all the air that we can flow through this displacement. As we come across, our timing increases because this is wide open. And if you notice, we go 25, 26, 28, 27, 29, 29, 27, 27, 25, 28. So this is weird. And for some reason, LS motors want a few less degrees of timing at peak torque.
That's what's got me scared. One dude made a comment, and I think we're going to run into what he just said. That 5.0, when I revved it up, it actually was fluttering the intake, and they say those will reach a what's the word I'm looking for? A frequency.
A frequency.
Yeah.
The air, pistons pulling air, stops the valve, it pulls air, and you start getting a surge of air going in. I think that's what he's just explaining. I'm actually learning them.
Mm-hmm.
So that motor's designed to be realistically in that range, right?
That's its most efficient range.
But if you was pulling a trailer up a hill, they don't
most torque.
They don't want it at 7,000. So that's where cam and all that. So that's exactly what you're describing.
Well, this is just going to make you the most amount of power.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be at 28 degrees because it didn't make any more power.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be at 29 degrees because it didn't make any more power. So, and actually, it will make less with that aggressive timing rate than it did at 27 and 25.
Yeah.
And that's where GM, dynoed this thing a million times and figured out, hey, if we pull just a hair bit of timing when we make peak torque, it makes 10, 15 more foot-pounds.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of people when they tune one of these, this is a stair step up to 35, and with a truck Norris cam, and that's not right. Number one, you don't need more timing out here because you're making less power, and number two, your peak torque needs a degree or two less than it did, without a cam. So it's just, it's real easy to go over here and put 24 in the box and go over here and put 30 in the box and then tell it to smooth it across.
And realistically, you would think that's right, but that's where the dyno, what you just said.
This is where we listen to Chevrolet and go, hey, they must have knew something we didn't. Because this is, you can see it step down there at 4,500, step down the timing and then come back up.
But like this same tune, if you was to put a set of trick flow heads and a built cam and a set of headers, you may not need that deal, I would think.
It just all depends.
It would really depend. You would have to dyno the engine.
Yeah.
It's just really the way the LS motor is. Like I said, you throw a bunch of aftermarket parts at it, it might go away, it might not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, tuning's endless. I think what he's saying is like if you got your bone stock 5.0 or 5.3,
5.7. LS1.
LS1, and you're tuning it, and you maybe change injectors or something, cold air intake. This is what you want to use. Now, if you're building a drastic engine,
You're gonna start from scratch and just dyno it and say, well, that made less power. Let's take a degree out.
so we need a dyno.
We need an engine dyno. But just don't ever let somebody put 95 degrees of timing in and make it a gradient slope because it's not right. This is,
Well, you want to do this stuff in baby steps. You don't
Right,
want to.
yeah.
You don't want to.
and this is where you'll run your knock sensors.
Yeah.
So if your knock sensors start seeing knock, we can come in here and we can reduce our timing to where we don't see the knock anymore. We don't have a dyno, so we don't know if we're losing or gaining power. But we know if we're seeing knock, a degree or two less is not going to hurt us because, we probably weren't making any more power with that knock.
Yeah.
But that's where I like performance tunes from factory Chevrolet because this is safe. You could if you know your compression ratio and you know your air fuel ratio, then this is a good time to take it. Let's not forget we can't build a motor and not adjust our fuel, but we can build a motor and not adjust our timing because it's going to be safer. But if we add more air into an engine and we don't tell it, it's going to run lean.
If you're watching my channel, you probably like Jeeps, and Lance probably don't know this. A 5.9, if you read on the internet, the 5.9 ZJ has a cam. It doesn't have a cam. It's a bone stock Dodge truck motor. Jeep come in and spice these numbers up, and you have to run 93. Well, I daily drove mine, my 5.9, and I was too tight to put 93, so I put 87. Justin would nearly throw up over there. It would sound like he was shaking rocks in a tin can, but I know the 5.9 is bulletproof, so I didn't care. But you could drive around and it would just ping its butt off. All right. So if you step over to 4.7 HOs, same principle. They actually have a better cam and all this. They have knock sensors. So you can run 87 when you're supposed to run 93, and those timing for you. The knock sensors will pick up those pings that the 5.9 was doing and pull them back. So I don't know. We'll learn that eventually. But if a 5.9 had a knock sensor, it'd pull it.
Yeah.
It did. It sounded like rocks in a can.
Well, and the 6.2s for Chevrolet were the same way. You know, they like your Escalade, you might not can hear it, but if you run 87, it's knocking.
What we just said is we're talking about tuning a 96. I mean, that's very new and stuff. You think 98, they didn't even have a knock sensor.
Right.
So
and that's another thing. If we go over here to retard, this is the amount of knock we can. This is the amount of timing we can reduce based off of knock. This is a factory table. You know,
this is dangerous.
people will zero this out.
Let it knock.
And because they don't, what they'll do is they'll put an ignorant amount of timing in their car, and they're sitting here driving it down the road, and they're plotting their spark over here, and it's like it's pulling timing for something. And they're like, I'm commanding 25 degrees, why am I not getting it? Oh, it's knocking, it's pulling my timing back out. Well, they'll just go over here and yank the timing, well, we'll fix that. We'll fix it to where it can't pull any timing.
Just turn it off.
And they turn it off, and then you're not.
What did Justin just say? Like, this is dangerous, because I'm not saying we're smart, but there's people out there that are not smart, and what he just said,
Yeah.
Hey, let's throw some timing at it, see what happens.
More is always better.
Yeah.
Well, and this is, the amount of knot retard you pull out too, it affects your torque management. So in another world, just for a sidebar here, if we go to torque management and we take out, this is torque based off spark retard, that would be the table we were just at, and this based off torque reduction. So these have a theoretical amount of torque. So it's the same way the VU table works. It knows that a 6-liter motor flowing this much fuel makes X amount of torque, theoretically. And if you overshoot that torque, if you over rev your motor, whatever, it can pull timing to make you not break it. Not super popular, but what people do is they will zero these tables out. And when they do that, the motor no longer has the ability to use torque management because it's based off desired torque, which this was a 6-speed car, so it don't have it. This was a factory Corvette 6-speed. But it would have a number in there, and as you destroyed your factory 4L60, it would actually use that knock retard timing from the previous table to pull power out of your car, keep you from killing your transmission.
So if you had a factory transmission, you had a built LS, this would save your transmission.
This would prolong the life of your 4L60.
Yeah, they ain't gonna save it, it'll prolong it.
And that's where people kind of shoot themselves in the foot. They don't associate these knock tables, these retard tables, with their torque management. But this is how much we can retard the timing based off a situation. So, you can, if you do this and you build the motor ever a little bit, you're going to kill a transmission.
So, like you just said, if you built a turbo 400 to handle that, you would go in there and disable all that because you're...
Yeah.
So, before you leave that, that's what I was just fixing to say. Justin had a Volvo station wagon. You make fun if you want. But did you change turbos or did you bolt the wastegate?
I pinched the wastegate off, so it was just full boost.
But it was front wheel drive car, and I remember this has been 15 plus years ago. You could stop and put it, like, two-step it and try to build boost, and you'd floor it and the car would go, and then it'd shift a second and go, and just start roasting the tires off.
Yeah.
That's what I was fixing to ask him, and I don't even think you know, my gray Duramax I built, it made me so mad. You put it four-wheel drive in first gear, put it to the floor, or in two-wheel drive when I had a gooseneck loaded, when it was in two-wheel drive first gear and it was loaded, you could put it on the floor and that Duramax would not spin the tires. But so that's what I'm trying to figure out. They have torque management per gear. If you could change the first gear torque. You think our Cherokees have torque management?
Right here it is. So your 1-2 shift, pulls timing, you know, let's say you're holding it on the floor. Your theoretical torque value for a built 6 liters, and like mine, was at 4,000 RPM making theoretically 300 foot-pounds of torque.
So these are theoretical torque numbers that it's making up.
Yep, on the top.
Yep.
And then on the bottom is the percentage of torque management in the squares, is a percentage of torque management it's using to.
So is that max timing, or is that pulling?
No, this is the percentage of timing it will pull based off your other table.
Yeah.
So if my not retard amount table had 100, it's going to use 20% of it.
Yeah.
So it's going to pull 22 degrees. It's not that aggressive. It doesn't have 100 in your other table.
Okay.
But this is the percentage of timing based off your other table. So if you zero out your not retard table, so it can't pull any timing, well, this is a percentage of zero now. And you don't have any torque management anymore.
Yeah.
So
Like my bank account.
So at wide open here, if it theoretically made 600 foot-pounds,
it would pull 30% of the time.
35% of the timing out in first gear.
First to second.
First
shift.
2 second.
Yeah.
So is there actually a first gear torque management? I've seen it on EFI Live. This is shift points.
I mean, that's where this whole torque reduction based off power is. So anytime you see,
Oh, that's RPM right
yeah,
there.
RPM based.
Okay.
So if you're making percentage of torque reduction applied in abuse mode, so if you start whooping on your transmission and your theoretical desired torque number, which is here, if you start making more torque, or so offset is the electronic throttle torque limit to increase desired torque in effort to keep the automatic transmission from slipping under low RPM load. So if it sees you load the motor down, it pulls timing. Like when you said you floored it from the dead stop
with
with
a
no
trailer.
RPM. It was like, holy crap, you have loaded me down. I'm not going to let it blow this transmission up. And it used.
But once it starts, look at the RPM. Once it gets above like 1,000 RPM, it cuts it
It
off.
goes away.
It goes away.
Yeah.
So now you're at full power.
Pretty much like choking off your throttle body until you get going. It's like I'm going to pull all your timing out until you start rolling. Because if I throw all the timing in while you're at a dead stop, you're either going to blow the tires off or blow the transmission apart.
That's what we want.
I mean,
Yeah, I see what you're saying though. If you're 2-footing it, that's why it's so hard to get a burnout started in any vehicle. If you're 2-footing it, it's down here, it's that.
well, if you want to, the best way to do that, to learn that, and it's based off anything, we can go to our all-knowing smartness tuner, Matt Sanford, and he has what we call burnout tunes. And he'll take you step by step through each PCM or Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5. He'll tell you what to disable, to let it have brake torque, to let it have the right shift pressures, to let your throttle position sensor work as effectively as it can. Because a lot of times what's preventing you from doing a burnout is, a lot of it's that torque stuff, but some of it is also like on a drive-by-wire, like you're, you floored it, but it's at 20.
Yeah.
Because, you're not really at 100.
Yeah.
So,
This is all for like burnout pad stuff, probably, right?
well, I mean, you can do it. I do it on all of mine. Anything I drive daily, I put his burnout tune in it, because if I floor it, I want it to go.
Okay. So you're
It's
just,
not hurting anything. You're just, you could hurt something, but you should be smart.
it's in your hands now instead
Yeah.
of an idiot's hands.
Yeah, you're
And
basically going back to
that's-
carburetor and regular old.
And that's where we want our VE table right, so we're not lean. And that's where we want our spark timing right, so we're not burning a hole in the piston. Because if we tune it correctly, and then we add something like that, we know we're okay. But
How many AW transmissions you got, Dex?
Not.
um,
I quit selling them because I realized I'm gonna run out.
so we done airflow. We done a little bit of fuel. This is where you'll come in and you'll change your injector duties stuff on your injectors for your stroker Jeep and your turbo Jeep. This is your stoic AFR. This is that jumping line between lean and rich for your narrowband oxygen system.
In case we forget, like you said, down here at the bottom, it's gonna tell roughly whatever.
Yeah, it's a really good learning tool. If you just wanted to get this and just start scrolling over stuff and reading all this.
Yeah, that's what I said. Me and Justin needed to sit down for like a week and just learn before we
That's
do.
what you gave me a laptop for the other day. Where'd you find that one at?
I was in the bottom of it.
But
It might work.
I would never want to lean out my stoic because stoic AFR is an actual scientific number of how the perfect burning of gasoline, and stoic changes for each fuel type.
That's what I was gonna say. My bouncer is different than regular
Yeah.
87, right?
Correct. And oxygenated fuel is completely different. They want 10 times more fuel than we're putting in these
So ain't it like
to be efficient.
Ain't it like 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or something like
Yeah,
that?
you'll have a dang lambda 3,
Yeah.
which is 3 times what gasoline.
What's up? E85.
It's like
10?
no,
No, it's lower than that, ain't it?
no, E85 is slightly more efficient than it's 20%.
Because that's what everybody says. You have to run twice the fuel pump, twice the
Yeah.
thing on E85.
Yeah, I can't remember the story for E85.
It doesn't matter. It's
But,
not.
but either way, that's where your offset for E85 would come into play.
So like if I was to be running VP fuel in the stroker, I would look up their stoic
Yep.
number,
For that.
and that's what I would be
You would-
trying to reach
9.8 to 1.
on an E85.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and factory GMs have E85 sensors, and they adjust your air fuel, commanded air fuel, based off the percentage of E85s in the tank. So you don't have to do that on these if it has an E85 sensor. Open loop versus closed loop, that's going to be your mass airflow sensor. Are you letting it learn? Are you not letting it learn? This over here, you can come, long-term fuel trims are the total of your short-term fuel trims, and it's saved into the computer. So when you crank your truck and you're driving it and your short-term fuel trims are at 20%, they're adding 20% fuel. If it does it enough times, it'll save it as a long-term fuel trim, and the next time you crank your truck, it's going to automatically put that 20% in, so the short terms don't have to do it.
Okay.
Now, your coolant temp has to be at minimum 131 degrees, and if you overheat your motor, then it quits using long-term fuel trims. These are also based off coolant temp, airflow mode. You can put how much you want to let it. This is like how far they can go, the learn limit. So 1.25 is not 1.25%. That's 25%. And on the bottom, 0.84 is negative 26%. No, negative 16%.
That's when you.
Yeah.
I learned this too. If you buy like Holly or any of those systems that say they're self-learning, what he just said, I don't know that. I think you set the numbers.
How
Yeah,
far
they'll-
it can go.
They'll only learn to a certain amount.
Yeah, like they try to sell you that you plug your Holly in and you type in it's a 383 and it'll just self-learn. It's set to like self-learn, like I don't know what Holly is, but it's only like 20%, whatever it is, don't change the story. But yeah, I thought when I bought my first Holly system, just plug it in, which I bought fast, so it's garbage, but you plug it in, I was like, oh, you just crank it up? No.
If your base tune is not within 20%, then it can't save you.
Well, I was gonna say, if you had a basic stock motor, stock-ish motor, it probably would.
Probably would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably would.
Yeah, you can take
And this is where you can, and this is not the wrong way to tune, it's just not the most efficient way to tune. You can take and chart your long-term fuel trims over on your scanner. And you can actually just go multiply your factory VE table by that fuel trim, so it doesn't have to go in and adjust it anymore.
You can fix it the right way.
Yeah, you can let it do the thinking for you. You can go, hey, we've been putting 20% in for 6 weeks now. You can go, okay, I'm going to highlight that chart, and I'm going to copy, and I'm going to multiply my factory table based off the percentage of change that we've been doing on our long terms. It'll work very similar to a wideband. The problem is, see, we've got like self hits and temps and times and update rates, and it's got to meet a bunch of criteria before it starts learning.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time before you get some good data.
Well, you showed us a number earlier, what you just said. If it cranks up and for some reason sees one time it goes up here to an odd number, it's not going to be like, hey,
Yeah.
it's going to see that 26 times.
Before it's efficient.
Okay.
Let's
Still like
see.
Justin, I just wonder how what those tunes are gonna look like right there.
And let's pull one
Well,
off
that's
the
what
Jeep,
I always go
and
back.
then we'll come back to it.
I always
Was
go
there
back
anything else
to.
we need to learn?
Oh, I'm sure there is, but we haven't touched really transmission tuning.
I always heard like
Or-
the first Mustangs or whatever that were.
Yeah.
They had like 12, like we see-
Tables.
Yeah, tables or whatever. So there was only so much you could do to it.
That's, I think I was just telling Lance that he's talking about dirt bikes and all this stuff being fuel injected. Like, it sounds great, but they're tuning it at the factory. They don't know they don't know how much you're gonna weigh to ride it. They
Yeah.
don't know how much traction. They don't know any of that stuff. So literally, a carburetor's probably better. He's gonna steal a tune off my Jeep, so it may not run no more. Do you know how to operate the key? I don't think I'm gonna video this process. Is the battery on? Yeah. All right, don't blow it up.
So, and this is where,
I know there's somewhere.
I don't think where's the license upgrade pad?
What he just said is he pulled a tune off the WJ. He says you can pull all the tunes you want, you can do everything you want with them, but to put them back on the vehicle, you have to pay the license fee per vehicle.
Okay, so here, if I wanted to unlock all of the 2001 Camaros, I could buy 5 credits.
Okay.
If I wanted to unlock all the 2000 Corvettes, 5 credits. I've purchased 1. So 99 Silverado. This was years ago when I had a 99. It only took 2 to unlock them all together.
That's what
So I could essentially upgrade now and do all 99s. What I like to do is if I've got, like you just need to unlock a computer and move it around from Jeep to Jeep. So,
Can't say that on camera, can you?
yeah, it's fine. Because you own all of them, who cares? But you don't, this is other people's cars though.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's say down here, this 08 Silverado takes 11 credits to unlock it. So that's $550
Yeah.
to unlock all of them, you know, and I need 1 more credit to unlock.
This is what I was talking about when
Yeah.
it started. It's like, I wonder how many different, I think we just looked, it's like Grand Cherokee was one, and then 96 to 98, because I feel like I'm going to end up,
Yeah, and once you do one, it'll tell you. But obviously, the newer it is, the more it's going to take.
where is this even at on the menu of the,
So we're going to go to our help
uh,
and then license information, which is I've had 2 different HP tuners hooked to this, but this one's mine.
gotcha.
And this is the VIN number over here, and this is what it is here. And it could just be the E92 PCM. You know, you can do it based off PCM series, or you can do it based off specific VIN numbers.
Gotcha.
So let's look at Jeep. This will be new for everybody.
Doesn't look like much.
Wow, look at all this.
Yes! Easy.
This is what we need.
So this is our idle airflow. So wow,
This is what I was hoping for.
airflow and map versus wide open throttle. What is?
This is 01 too, so
we're gonna put a GM computer on one of these.
96 is going to be gravy, I hope.
We sure we downloaded everything?
Yeah, we're in advanced view too. So let's say if we went to basic view, we have to close this and reopen.
Basics just for dummies.
Yeah, there you go. You don't get nothing.
Wow.
So, and that's where we might be limited by the computer.
Got to close it out.
So we may have to get a Holly system to do.
Can we OS swap anything? Now, so this is where your 2-bar map sensor, you can't tell it it's a 2-bar, so you would essentially have to half all your numbers, so it'll run off of
Somebody told me you could do this.
yeah, you can manipulate a 1-bar to work on a 2-bar. It's just less effective or efficient because you have half as many.
Readable numbers. Somebody actually commented that you could change it in the computer to a 2-bar, so that's why I don't like the internet. Is anybody can comment anything they want, and they look smart, but guess what? They don't know what half the time they're saying.
Let's see a smart table. So we've got our base table. This is your load versus RPM, like we've seen on the Chevrolet.
40 degrees.
Yeah, it's going to be low load. Looks like cruising, you know, set to cruise 60 mile an hour. You know, you're running around in this range right here, which is normal. This is your wide open throttle down here.
So that chart is actually that small?
That's it, buddy.
Wow.
So it's not very accurate, you know, like going to be a lot of big jumps in your timing.
Yeah.
But you know, essentially at wide open, you're going to be running anywhere at most 20 degrees if you loaded your motor down, you know, less load, more timing. But that's where you could change your timing. And then wide open throttle modifier. So this is if you're holding on the floor and it sees your pedals at wide open, it'll actually add a degree or add a half a degree to your.
This
It may.
is spark modifier.
Yeah, so it might give you a little more for wide open. It may actually be half. I'd have to do a little research. It may be half in your timing, but I doubt it. Probably adding just half a degree. Idle spark. This is where
Lance is like, I don't know what to do with all this.
there's no information. So
This is his first time ever seeing something like this, so I would be confused myself too. Like he.
I'm not a Jeep 4.0 ton.
Uh-huh.
I'm barely good at Chevrolets.
Where's the rev limiter at?
Just let him study till he's satisfied.
So at least there's less stuff for us to F up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is our fuel injector. Low rate. So this is
We're learning.
we're in weird.
This is, I don't think y'all know. Remember I don't know if they make you read in school or not, but remember they have like, I think it's based off grades, but they have like the 1 to 2 reading level and then the 2 to 5 and then your more advanced book. You remember that? What do you call it?
Accelerated reading, but
Well, that's what we called it. Well, to get points, you had to read a book. Well, I can't read. I don't have the attention span to read. So when you took the test to figure out your reading level, I bombed it. Well, the teacher was calling out like, she'd say, so-and-so, your reading level's a 4.6 to a 5.8. And then she got done. She didn't call mine. I was like, well, heck, I don't get to read. But see, I wanted to read the easy books to get points to win stuff. Well, she got done. She's like, Dex, Browder, come to my desk. And she took my folder and said, yours is a 1.2 to 1.8. This was in 8th grade, so I was reading on a 1st grade level. That's a true story, too. I felt bad after I did it. I was like, she thinks I'm stupid. But that's what I just said. This is where me and Justin needs to start before we dip off into...
does it actually have torque management?
Yes.
So this is spark reduction for a 1-2 shift and for a 2-3 shift.
Cancel that. Cancel that.
I mean, it would take it on the stop. That's for a 60 reading. This is where I'm dumbfounded by the lack of. So essentially, what we're doing is increasing or decreasing our injector's pulse width to get more or less fuel. Is what it looks like, based off the map pressure.
So you're saying it just changes how much it pulses injector?
Yeah. So instead of it being like a VE table, it's just increasing or decreasing fuel based off your barometric pressure. See, we don't know all these weird numbers. It's something we can do. That's the guy I've got to be doing something. I don't care. This is crazy. There's nothing here. Yeah, so here's our idle airflow adjustment. There's our follower. So,
I like it.
what are we looking at?
Easy.
It's so easy. We made it hard on ourselves.
That's why he was going through all them VE tables. I get them. Like, I'm not saying I can do them, but I understand them. But I was like, that's a 01, so I'm still curious to 96 what it's going to be like.
No, I'm just curious to how we improve our manifold or our volumetric efficiency so we can tell it we're doing better or worse. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, you're going to have to do all the tuning off of the wideband?
Well, no. I mean, there's no VE table to adjust here. I'm sure there is somewhere, but it's not looking.
It's just all that's max.
What computer is this? Do you know?
Computer?
Yeah, like the PCM's part number.
That I don't know.
I probably could look here. If it'll tell me.
Probably won't tell you.
So this is a JTech Plus PCM.
99 plus. That was a cutoff.
So nice.
So that is going to be different.
So if we were to add a controller, okay. So we're just going to have to see if a JTech gives us the option to adjust, and if it does, how do we go about changing it? Because your barometric pressures is going to be essentially your vacuum
Right.
load on the motor, and
What do you change?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's almost like it's a predetermined amount that we can't adjust.
Is those menus down below? Is that any?
I mean, here is our fuel injector offset. This is our pulse width. So this is just going to be for that injector specifically.
So you just type in what your injector is, but like how do you change?
So I mean, just we can read over these like this is prime shot pulse width. Injector pulse width for the priming shot depending on temperature. So if you're cranking the car, this is how much fuel, how much it pulses the injector. So like I'm saying, if we wanted to tell it to put more fuel on one of these instead of increasing our volumetric efficiency, it looks like we're going to have to increase our pulse width on our injector.
That makes sense. I don't know. Not many people watched that video. I had a Jeep, sold the motor, and the guy put it in, said it was missing. Anyways, long story short, his mechanic was saying it jumped time. His mechanic was saying this. It's like, bring the thing back to me. We finally brought it back to me, and he put AutoZone injectors, and the thing run teetotal like crap. And I didn't even know this. What he just said, I guess the ohm resistance or something, the AutoZone injectors wasn't right. When you turn the key on, I didn't know all 6 of them squirt like a choke. And after that, the injectors were so bad, like 2 of them wouldn't fire because I guess the computer didn't recognize them. So all I did was put factory injectors back, and it run fine. I sold a bad motor, but yeah, that's what I didn't know that they do it. When you turn the key on, it fires all 6 injectors, and then it starts firing them individually after that.
Yeah, it's and then so when you cycle the key, you get a little bit, and while you're cranking, you get a different table. So this is while the engine's physically turning over. This is the pulse width of that injector. So obviously, if it's warmer, it takes less fuel to start the engine, so the pulse width decreases. But what I'm wanting to see is my pulse width versus manifold pressure.
Yeah, that's what I would
Which-
usually hadn't seen anything.
Which should be here, and this is the offset of that versus your wide open throttle. But I mean, with HP tuners, it's weird. Like it, I don't know. It may be in here, it may not. Just be based off that computer. That's on that anyway.
Do what? Set it on the manual works.
So, so essentially what it does is it just pulses that injector versus spaces the map pressure because it's speed density all the time. And then it can correct based off the oxygen sensor here. So this is how much it can correct at any given temperature. But what I want to see is the base table, like where is my base? Is it even tunable on a JTAG?
I've got a guy I can call, but he talks a lot. Alright, we'll turn the camera off till we actually know what we're doing.
15, 16, 18% fuel to keep your air fuel ratio right. But what I want to see is, I want to see this base table that we're adding 15 to.
Yeah, there's no table, it's just a...
It's just a multiplier of,
What happens if you click on the 3D graph? Is it even there?
well, I mean, this is just going to be a power enrichment graph. But no, it's a 2D
There's no 3D.
chart.
There's no 3D chart.
Well, it's a linear graph because it's a single line.
Yeah.
But like, so here, this is our Y. This is where I would like to see more squares based off manifold pressure. This is just, if you're on the floor, it puts more fuel in because you're on the floor.
I feel like something's missing.
I do too, and it may just be this PCM, you know. And this may be one of those things where you can't run a JTAG with any massive aftermarket changes. But
I'm assuming that computer is different than Cherokee's, isn't it?
it's probably just worse. But it may not. I don't know. There's, I mean, the map scaler. It looks like it just multiplies your injector duty cycle versus manifold pressure. So it knows what the injector size is, so it just pulses it faster or slower based off of one line. You know what I mean? As manifold vacuum decreases, fueling increases.
It's that simple.
No, it's just not tunable, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, this is the bare minimum to make a stock vehicle run, because they knew all the parameters going into it. When you engine down on 1,000 times, you can just base set it in.
I'm gonna let you talk to this guy. He's really smart, and you're gonna like talking to him.
Hello.
Hey, it's Dex.
Hey.
Hey, I don't want to bother you, know how it is, but we're trying to learn HP tuners, and I've got a guy that's smarter than me, and we've downloaded a tune, but can he ask you some questions about it?
Are you asking me about how to tune?
How do you get to it? Do they have... I'm going to let you talk to him because he knows more about it. What are you looking for?
So a volumetric efficiency table, or some sort of table to compare my...
So let me make sure I understand this. You're asking me, you're interrupting my workday for me to teach you how to tune.
Basically. I was just asking if there was a table.
Maybe you guys can't figure it out. You don't need to be messing with this.
Okay, well, I was wanting to work with you, but I never got an email back about the stuff.
Where did you email?
Well, that's what you didn't want me to have this number, and you was going to send me some information to email other people.
Yeah, I mean, the email address is on our website, Dex.
Sorry to bother you.
Wow.
It's real nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I can figure it out. This is just
Something missing.
minimal information. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Huh. Gotta kind of put a burner on your day.
Yeah.
I met that guy on my Spider Jeep, and he was like this Chrysler tuner, and the first time I talked to him, I think we talked for 2.5 hours, and he tuned my Spider Jeep, my 5.9, whatever it was. Well then, 8 years later, I text him, he's like, how did you get this number? I was like, well, you tuned my Jeep. So I call him going down the road, and we talked for another solid 1.5 hours. And we just going back and forth, and he was talking about how his business grew, and I was like, man, I do social media. I was like, we could work together, I think that. And like I said, 1.5 hour phone call, and yeah, that's how that went. So we'll just cancel that out and move on about our business. He was like all excited. He's like, yeah, man, if you could do this and we work together, and
Well, I'm sure, like, I'm going to have to see, like, because sometimes on a 07 and up Chevrolet, there's no charts here to change your volumetric efficiency. They're over here under view, and it'll actually open a volumetric efficiency table where you can actually see it. It's like an underlying table that's preset into the computer. And if that's the case on one of these, I'm going to have to figure out how HP Tuners reads a JTEC computer, because all of them are different. But this whole, all I'm getting is,
a straight line.
yeah, just scale.
We got a lot of learning to do.
I mean, it's just different than a GM computer, which is all I've ever tuned on. I don't tune Jeeps and I don't tune Mustangs because I don't know nothing about them.
Right.
Chart.
Enough to match
Enough.
the sizes that.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to enrich it, drive it, watch your...
Pull that chart back up. I think that's what I was just telling them. Like, this is technology from 2000. And I'm gonna say probably most people watching don't even remember 2000. But we barely had cell phones. I mean, I didn't get a cell phone till 08.
Yeah.
So anyway, the #1 number is your base.
Volumetric efficiency
Yeah.
for that displacement.
So that's what he's saying. Like the stroker now, you just want to go straight across the board and add 15% fuel for.
And then check your wideband and go, okay, we're still lean by 4%, so we need to enrich 4 more percent to get us to our stoichiometric, which will be 14.7.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep tuning this chart, part throttle, until our air-fuel ratio is correct. So, and that's what this is
How can
doing.
it be that simple?
It's
One.
It's just not very. It's like.
Well,
like a car brand.
keep in mind too,
Yeah.
you're from 500 RPM to 2,000 3/4 of the way across the chart there. So
Yeah.
it's kind of confusing the way it's set up. Like there towards the end, it goes from 3,000 to
It
5,000.
doesn't add any more fuel down here because there's not a lot of load on the motor.
Right. Gotcha.
You know what I mean? We're not-
It's a very torquey motor for
Yeah.
what it is. It's
So,
a tractor motor.
It's got a predetermined amount of fuel. It fuels for that size injector and this displacement engine, and it is most efficient, so this is what we fuel for. As we start really sucking in air and we start adding fuel, because our volumetric efficiency is increasing.
What did Justin just say about these motors making no more power between half blades?
That's your proof right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is our enrichment multiplier based off of spark. So it's saying that if we're enriching 14%, then we're also pulling timing.
Say it again.
Enrichment multiplier. So spark retards at -10. It's pretty much like it's keeping you from blowing your motor up.
So that's
If it sees -10, your enrichment rate is multiplied by that. So
if it sees -10 timing, it's pulling.
adding fuel,
Oh,
making it safer.
Okay.
And then This is an altitude correction. We don't necessarily. This is so if your base barometric pressure changes,
Yeah.
it can add or take away fuel.
Should.
No,
Shouldn't even
it's factory would be smart enough, but right here's where you're going to tune it part throttle against a wideband. So what you would do is you'd make a histogram on your scanner with those numbers across the top and these numbers down the side, and then you would plot your wideband's percentage of difference, and then just add what it takes to get it to run correctly.
Yeah.
And that would be your new number. And this is part throttle. And then anytime you floor it, we go into this table. So if you're at wide open throttle, if this pedal's on the floor, as the RPM increases, this is where, say it's more fuel down here than you had on your part throttle table.
Yeah.
On your part throttle table, you weren't adding any fuel at 900 because you weren't at wide open.
Yeah.
You're just part throttling around. So you might have to increase this number to match it.
So that would be your, I'd say, dyno pull. When you go out there and hold it to the floor and it's changing its AFR, this would be where you want to.
Yeah, you would want to do both essentially, because to make it right, because you'd have a big transition once you wide opened. If this was off and it had to jump from one to the other back, what you'd probably get is coming back off your wide open throttle. This table's going to be too lean, and the truck's not going to run.
Gotcha.
You're going to have to make it so. And this is where you would just hook a wideband up and crank it and run it and let it learn.
Yeah.
And then adjust it. But this is where, since you've changed your injector information, then we've got to also fix that. So we need to figure out what your pulse width is on your new injectors and injector offset value. See, this is a constant. We don't have a set amount of injector flow rate per hour. Did they all have the same injectors?
No.
So where is our injector data at?
I say they didn't have. They may have had the same ones per, like the license, I guess you'd call it there.
So this is our base pulse width based off EGR off. This is the closest thing to a VU table I've seen yet. So this is how much we're pulsing that injector based off RPM and load.
So they don't even have anything to do with TPS. It's just all manifold pressure.
Yeah, that's the way Jeep's been created. I mean, it seems simple, but now seeing this part throttle under power enrichment is pretty much how you're adding fuel for that extra air. And what I don't understand is where my injector data is.
Lance is a Samsung Android guy. He likes the complicated stuff. I like the iPhone simple stuff. All right, until we know something, I'm gonna turn this off. All right, so I don't really know at this point what to do with this video. I was gonna try to tune on these, but like I told you, that still needs fuel pump and axles and stuff like that. That one still needs boots and stuff, and I gotta sit down. I'm gonna do it while it's cold and sit down and learn what I'm doing. I technically don't know. We just learned what we just saw. So I think that's gonna conclude this video, and then that would make more sense, because some people's gonna like the way this video was learning, but a lot of people's just gonna wanna see just the tuning. So that'll be its own video. That way I can actually know what I'm doing and try to teach something instead of, yeah. So if you made it this far, I feel like this is a long video, but I think it was kind of interesting. I learned a lot, and yeah. So anyways, appreciate it. Have a good day. I got a lot to learn.